Yes, everybody. Hope you're all doing fantastically well. It's Connor. We're back here with your instant match reaction. What is going on with all of you? Sometimes you'll watch immediately after the game. Sometimes you will watch 3 or 4 hours afterwards. Sometimes you will watch the day or maybe even 2 afterwards. Before I start, everybody, thank you so much for your donations on the watch along. You guys are really enjoying that. And it's very heartwarming for me to see the instant match reactions as well. We're getting a good retention rate. Thank you so much for all of you watching and doing all the good stuff as well. I would like to say, everybody, there was a sort of big announcement that I wanted to make. I am going to Miami next week. I am going to Tampa Bay next week to watch the Leeds United QPR game with our fellow Whites out in America, Tampa Bay Whites. I'm going to be sitting with them watching the game. I'm thoroughly excited to do so. We want to bring One Leeds a little bit more global, not just sat in my bloody studio, but doing things with fans, speaking to fans that follow this fantastic, prestigious club. So hopefully I'll see some of you out there. If I don't, listen, hopefully it's one of many going abroad for Leeds United, One Leeds United, and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, great news there. But I just wanted to let you guys know, because I know a lot of you join in for this as well, and would maybe enjoy that sort of thing. So let's get on to the game as well. 3-0 to Leeds United. A very routine win for the mighty Whites. Fantastic. Look, I predicted 3-1 in the prediction. I think what we're seeing here from the stats is nothing short of domination. 0 expected goals, 0 shots, which obviously means 0 shots on target for Plymouth Argyle. 197 passes in comparison to Leeds is near 700, and 14 fouls committed to Leeds is 3, which just basically illustrates to you how dominating Leeds were. And look, dominant Leeds were, I should say. And look, from the starting whistle, like someone said on the chat that I was in on the watch on, they said, look, we should give credit to Daniel Farke. In a sense, you should do. You 100% should do. But what I will say is that is a game I expected Leeds to dominate. It's a game which I expected Leeds to take control away from Wayne Rooney's team. And I thought Leeds, from moment one, were excellent from the starting whistle, really. We were completely on top. We suffocated them. And do you know what I liked? By God, everybody, when we were 1-0 up, we didn't sit back. It was lovely. When we sat back, when we were 1-0 up, we didn't sit back, went for the second, went for the third, went for the jugular, which was nice. Second half, we stepped off a little bit, and I'm going to get into the second half in just a little bit. But we saw a lot of really nice performances in there. I have to say, I thought Sam Byram on that right-hand side, we mentioned it after the Bristol City game that we thought he'd suffer on the left in comparison to the right, mainly due to the variation in his play being completely lacking because he can't use his left foot at speed. So when you use your left foot stationary or when you use your left foot cutting inside is very different to you sprinting on the left-hand side on an overlap or an underlap transition in a 1-2 fashion when you're not on the ball, or when you have the ball at your feet. It's extremely different to be running onto a ball and crossing it and sort of having the ball at your feet, utilizing your left foot and then crossing it in with perfection. If you are not a left-footed player, only players that can really do that anyway in world football, I'd probably pencil at Trent Alexander-Arnold, maybe Danny Carvajal and a few others. It's very rare that players can do that. If you're not strong-sided on your left-hand side to be able to run with it at pace, then deliver it to a good quality standard. So Sam shouldn't be deployed at left-back, in my opinion. Or if he is deployed at left-back, you're not expecting anything of him going forward. And he was solid, I thought, on the right-hand side, but also he gave you a variance in his play. He was cutting back on his left foot, which I think was almost something that the Plymouth fullbacks didn't expect. Sam Byram cutting in, but there's an unpredictability to his game there, right? There's an unpredictability. He can go on the right or he can go on the left. What the Bristol City fullback realised is he can't go on his left foot, so he's just going to cut inside every time, so I'm going to show him inside. Today, he couldn't do that, hence why we said in the post-match against Bristol City, Sam Byram is much better on the right side, and that's where he's made a career for himself at Leeds United, of course, and going on to his career at Forest and West Ham, etc. So, Byram, much better. Much better for me. I don't care. Jesus, some people have been saying, we got SofaScore 8.3. Guys, SofaScore last season have given Patrick Bamford an 8.6 in a game where I think he touched the ball about 4 or 5 times. SofaScore, look, they partnered with the channel. I like SofaScore. I like the guys at SofaScore as well. That doesn't mean that Byram or whoever has a good game, they frequently, but they're not even watching the games, are they? They're just basing it on these data metrics. And I think clean sheets would have come into factor last week. But listen, Byram was much better this weekend. Strauch, Rodon, Imperious, fantastic, lovely partnership, lovely synergy. They just know each other's game. They're really good together. Real level of oozing of class, confidence, assurance, exuberance of class. And I'm very, very happy with those two at the back. I think they're always fit, which is good to see. Strauch seems to be getting himself into that mode as well, where he seems to be a bit of a steady Eddie. We're not sort of expecting Pascal to be pulling out at any point. He seems to be stretching for balls a little bit more. He seems to be, I feel like, half a yard quicker this season. And I don't know, maybe last season he was a little bit tentative in making those sort of last-ditch slide tackles or those, bursting speed runs that he does have, because he's a quick centre-back. He's a very quick centre-back. And, even when sort of Andre Gray, the old wily fox, was trying to get on him today, there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. He had him in his back pocket, which was great to see. Firpo brought a level of attacking impetus, which we needed last week, which we didn't have with Sam on that left-hand side. Firpo was brilliant. I thought the underlaps of which, what he does is, you'll have maybe William Yonto on that as wide as he can possibly get, and you'll see basically Junior Firpo going between the centre back and the left back, not just going on the flank side of the left back, but going in between the left back and the centre back in terms of just occupying that position or running in between that. I thought that was very important for Leeds United today in terms of creating space and just creating opportunity as well. Very, very good from that respect. The only thing I'd criticise Junior for is being able to put that ball in the box and beat that first man. But look, we'll go a little bit further forward. I thought it was one of Joe Rothwell's best games in a Leeds United shirt. I got hammered for daring to say that Joe Rothwell was Player of the Month. Now, I mentioned that he'd be Player of the Month because it almost just made me extremely happy that he proved so many people wrong. In this space on social media, it was great that he proved so many people wrong, because I and a lot of you guys knew that he had ability. You look at the clubs that he's been at. You look at the fact that he's played Premier League football for Bournemouth, and Bournemouth don't recruit bad midfielders. You see that even today, when they're beating Man City 2-1. They've had a real good recruitment policy for the last 5 to 10 years. And Rothwell was brought in on that recruitment policy. And just wasn't able to break the mold when it came there. But when he's come to Leeds United, every single time he's played, he's assured on the ball. Defensively, he gets about. He's combative. He's excellent on the ball. Always wants the ball. Has a good left foot, has a good right foot, has excellent balance, open and closed body choices at the right time, at the right times, is very important as well. And he switches. He doesn't. For a lot of people who were saying, "Oh, it's Gruev, it's Tanaka, Gruev, it's Ampadu," it's being told by the manager. Rothwell doesn't care. He gets the ball and switches play. Why do you switch play? Very, very simple. Exactly what you saw in the first half. So for those who were saying, when Gruev's fit, he comes straight back in. That's why he doesn't, because Gruev doesn't do that. The safety option for Gruev is on every single time, which any player can do the safety option. Leeds have got essentially 6 men behind the ball every single time we are building up. So the safety option's easy. Anybody can do the safety option. I could get on the pitch, and if someone gives me the ball, I can go back to Strauch, or I can go to the fullbacks. If you're a decent footballer, you can do that. If you're half decent, even if you're a League One, League Two player. But the risky midfielders, the ones that we all fall in love with, they don't only vary their play, but they're more bothered about getting the team forward. And that's exactly what Rothwell does. And that's probably why his maybe pass percentage is a little bit less than your Tanaka's, or a little bit less than your Gilavodji when he came on, because Rothwell presses the action. He's more of your attacking player. But I like how he varies his lateral play. I like how he plays, plays the ball to Strauch and Rodon. And I'd be so interested to see a statistic behind how many times he actually passes the ball to the centre-backs, because it seems very, very rare. Very, very rare. And he's always looking to go forward. I thought his switch plays out to Dan James, who we have to move on to. He was excellent. Absolutely excellent today. I thought his wing play, just old-fashioned wing play, standing the fullback up, going, right, I'm taking you on. getting to the byline, crossing the ball in, good balls in as well for the majority of it was superb. What I'm really starting to rate with Dan James, and he's done it as a bit of a hallmark in his career for a while now, what I'm starting to rate is him cutting inside on his left foot. And Byram started to do it as well, which was interesting on that right-hand side, almost taking inspiration, because the angle's cut off on Dan's right-hand side because everybody knows he's going to try go down the flank and jink you and put the ball into the box. What they're not expecting is Dan James to cut inside and play the ball in on his notoriously weaker left foot. So I personally think that's a really good variation in his game. Keep using that word, but it's so important in wing play and just footballers play, varying what you do, not being predictable. This team at points last season when we won 3 games in 11 was predictable. It's predictable what we're going to do. And I'll tell you what, everybody, in that first sort of 10 to 11 minutes, or maybe that first 10 to 15 minutes, it was predictable. We're passing the ball like that, across the middle, to Dan James, to Nonto, across the ball in. And that's what we're doing. We're getting corners from it, but then do you do anything from the corners is the question. That's always put at Leeds United. So really impressed with Rothwell in there. Dan was excellent. If he wasn't taken off so early, I'd have said he was man of the match. Tanaka was just ticking over. Tanaka ticking over, a little bit of alliteration there, but that's exactly what he is. Ticks the ball over. Played a lovely switch ball over the head of the left back at one point, of which Byram didn't read. But aside from that, it seemed like Rothwell was the one getting hold of the ball today and trying to drive Leeds forward. Tanaka just probably doing a bit of your Graves today. And we can't make like real definitive differences between those two, Gruev and Tanaka, in a game like today. And I'm only mentioning Gruev because he was on LUTV, but Gruev and Tanaka were very similar in the play today. Tanaka wasn't doing anything, crazy. He wasn't doing anything too sort of pressing in the forward positions. He was just keeping the ball ticking over. That's exactly what Gruev does. So, that is where Gruev's very good, at keeping the ball ticking over, getting the ball, moving it, getting the ball, trying to create space in that middle part of the pitch. But I think we've got to get more in there, in terms of what this side is capable of. Going forward, listen, a lot to be happy about going forward. I felt Brendan Aaronson was much better. And I think, and sometimes I have to say I miss this a little bit when I'm getting into Brendan and talking about his play and how he develops. He's always an option. And if you're a defensive midfielder in Adam Forshaw today and you're 33, 34 years of age, and you're marking Brendan Aaronson and he's constantly off his man, looking into the channels, constantly off his man, wanting the ball, dropping in deep, dropping in the pockets between the defense and the midfield. Really, really excellent. And I have to say today, I was really impressed with his body distribution. He was getting across the defensive man as well, using his body in the right way. And I have to say the balance of him as well, the low center of gravity in being able to jink one way, jink the other, but making the correct decisions, aside from a couple of moments in the first 10 to 15 minutes, really impressive from Brendan Aaronson today. And I have to say it's probably his best performance, I'd say, in about 5 or 6 games. I think Brendan was back to his the bit where we've seen earlier on this season. So very, very happy for him. Moving across that line as well, William Yonto, one of my favourites and people who I have an agenda for William Yonto and will never call him out. Thought he was poor today. Yeah, thought he was poor. You're looking at a Plymouth side of which this man, you've got to kind of take the reins, and he's up against their best player in Barley Mumba, who I thought for them had a very good game today. Sissoko was missing, but him and Barley Mumba, they're able to find these absolute gems in that Plymouth recruitment scale, and it's very impressive. It has to be said. But Barley Mumba today, has to be said, was very good in a Plymouth side that with 3-0. He deserved to be on the opposite side, and there was a number of times in that first half when he was coming up against Barley Mumba, and I thought even when Chambers came on in that second half and was up against him, he was struggling. He was struggling to get past him. Mumba reads the game very well. A bit of a Norwich, how on earth did you let him go sort of player, and one of which, I'd take him at Leeds 100%. I think he's a very, very good defender, and his percentages are very good. But I thought Nonto struggled a little bit against him. I thought a lot of his play was inside, inverted, and I thought when he got on the flank, of which is the difference between, let's say, him and someone like Manos Solomon, who we'll get onto in a little bit. William Yonto cut inside a couple of times, got a couple of decent efforts away, but when he was on that flank, it's the connection with the ball. If I'm being brutally honest, he hits a lot. You know, when we'll talk about running at speed, and I mentioned it at the start with Sam Byram, running at speed and putting the ball in with your left foot, it's difficult. It is difficult. And that's what William Yonto has to do as a right-sided player on the left-hand side. If he goes on the left, he's running at speed, as we know he does, very, very agile, but he's running at speed on that left-hand side, connecting with the ball. But unfortunately, because it's not his natural foot, and because maybe he's just not as good on his left side, aside from that beautiful Millwall goal where he was running at pace last season, he's not that great at running on the flank on his left foot. He does hit the first man a lot of the time. But that's probably more on the Leeds United players to predict that. So if William Yonto's doing that every single time, and you're seeing him do that every single time where the front man is able to cut it out. So if he's running on that flank, putting the ball in with his left foot, his weaker foot, he's not able to get the right connection on the ball, but it hits that first man. Get across your first man. Get across your first man. And that's on the Leeds United players in Brendan Aaronson running from the number 8 position and Joel Piroe to get across your man because you know where the ball is going. Because William Yonto doesn't really hit it beyond that first man or second man. You've got to get in front of that first man. You've got to do it. But moving on a little bit, I thought Joel Piroe. Cheers as well, everybody. It is my best mate's 30th coming up. Joel, how do you describe his performance today? This really is the instant match reaction, isn't it? I'm not taking any step away here. Good. Not excellent, but good. I thought in the second half in particular, held the ball up very well. Probably the best he's done it this season. I thought in the first half, it was irritating me how much he doesn't move between the two centre-backs. Now, as a centre-forward, I believe the word variance again, coming short, going into the channels, looking for the 1-2 in short spaces, small spaces, with maybe your midfielder, giving the centre-back a little bit to think about. Thinking, oh, well, where's he going to go here? He's going to drop off. Is he going to go into the channels? Is he going to maybe do something a little bit different, a little bit left field, and go into that right back position and left back position, really drop deep? And am I going to have to follow him here? What do I do? Because then Brendan Aaronson is replacing him and going into that centre forward position. So I've got to hold a little bit here. But then Piroe gets the space on the edge of the area, of which, not for striking the ball, but for maybe linking play, he's got a lovely left foot. So I just think in that first half, a bit of variation in his play would have been really, really impressive. And I thought he brought that to his game in the second half. The ball was being distributed from Eli Mele, which at last was central today. And I actually thought, as that last line, he was good at knocking the ball on, I have to say. But Joseph did come on, and his first touch was to play the ball came in from Milan Mele, and he touched it off unbelievably off his chest, right in the path of Brendan Aaronson. But we have to say with Joel, he got his goal, really impressive as well, in terms of doing that and holding the ball up. And a lot of the things that I've criticised him for, he did today. Moving into the pockets in that second half pretty well. Got his goal, should have got more. We all know with him that he's a little bit lethargic. However, I think it's just his style. It's just how he is. And look, I'll die on this hill. You guys know I will, about Joseph starting ahead of him. But the counterpoint to that is the fact that when him and Piroe are on the pitch together, Joseph and Piroe, I just think we look yards better. However, I do think Brendan Aaronson was really good today. Really, really good. Okay, so let's get into a couple of your comments. Piroe, watch your channel once and dyed his hair. That's it, mate. What does Schmidt have to do to get on the pitch? Let's get into that a little bit, because it was a bit of a tough one today to analyse. So we're watching the watch along, and then immediately, really, you see a scenario of which we can have a conversation about. Obviously, we had the substitutions, didn't we? Solomon came on, Joseph came on, but then you saw Chambers and Crew come on ahead of Isaac Schmidt. Now, context applied, everybody. Schmidt is 24, no injuries reported whatsoever. It's odd. And we've seen Farke do this a little bit before, where maybe certain individuals get ostracized. And I don't know. It's leading me to question Because let's not sensationalize this, but we've had if you're Isaac Schmidt, right, and you've signed from a UEFA League Conference side, of which you're performing very well and are a constant in that side, you come into Leeds United, there's been a left back option available for you in Junior Firpo, right? Then there's been a right back option for you available in Jayden Bogle. You've not started either of those, but then you've not come on in either. Now, the game is won within 38 minutes. We are literally levels ahead of them. And that game, if it's based on ability, should have been about 9-0. But Leeds never give us that, do they? But you're thinking, surely, to yourself that you're coming on in that half to maybe replace maybe Junior Firpo, Sam Byram, who's not had a lot of match fitness, you know. Byram stays on, plays the full 90, and Schmidt doesn't get ahead of Charlie Crew, but not only Charlie Crew, Chambers. And look, I understand there's different rotational options in that side. You might want to take your wingers off, as we did. You might want to rotate that side. But as I say, Sam Byram, not a lot of match fitness. We know that they could be the only minute Sam plays. Bogle's obviously going to come back into the fold. But to not involve Schmidt in either game at all, when you've had left back and right back voids, and then you're getting two kids coming on ahead of him, of which, look, Schmidt has played centrally before. So you can always put Schmidt on instead of Charlie Crew. That I found. Now, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. But it's interesting. It is interesting. Yeah, very good. Lose the thesaurus file. This isn't a theatre and you aren't Shakespeare. All right, mate. So basically, what happened were he kicked ball into net and it were great. And then when it were great, I thought, how do I feel? Happy. Happy as sun on my face. There we go, mate. How about that? Is that better? Worst team I've seen at Ellen Road. How good was DJ in that first half, mate? Unbelievable, mate. Really, really good in that first half. Probably his best half of football I've seen this season from DJ. And yeah, it just shows you, mate, what he can give. He can give us when he's on it. Connor, how does Ampadu and Gruev get back into this team? Excellent point. I think I've always said this, like with Ampadu. I've questioned the fact that with Rothwell and Tanaka now, there seems to be a balance. We've played the better teams. We've played the worst teams in this division. And there's no problem with those two. They're not struggling. There's no defensive issues. There's not being defensive liabilities in that midfield whatsoever. You can coax yourself into believing that there has been, and football is subjective, but the stats won't tell you that either. And Ampadu and Grev would have faced maybe the same defensive frailties as that midfield has had, which was maybe up against Norwich for spouts with Borja Sainz drifting in the middle and maybe a Joe Bellingham, maybe. But aside from that, it's been easy for him. Really, as a midfield partnership, when you look at the been since Norwich 49 minutes, it's been easy. So then, for me, you've got to look at football and ability. I don't think ability-wise, as a footballer, as a technical footballer, Ampadu's above Rothwell. I don't think that. That will be unpopular because Rothwell's a lone player. And I sort of say what I think. I don't care. But he's not. He's just not. And if Rothwell was a Leeds player, I think people would maybe have a different mindset. He's just not a better footballer than Joe Rothwell. And you've seen that today and amongst the games where Rothwell's been head and shoulders with Tanaka above other midfields in this division, the so-called best midfields in this division. So that's the biggest test they've had, and they've come through it perfectly. So for me, I will put the absolute yardstick down that Grev should not be getting in this league. Grev is fourth choice defensive midfielder right now, or fourth choice pivot player. And if you disagree with that, fine, but tell me why. What does Gruev offer, without just coming on and saying you're negative, you're pessimistic, blah blah blah, and not actually having an intelligent conversation about it? Let me know exactly why you'd put Gruev over Rothwell and over Tanaka right now. You just wouldn't. You can't. There's nothing in his game which elevates him above those two for me. And those two have now shown that they've got the defensive sides of the game as well, just in different ways. Ampadu's the big conversation. Um, Ampadu's the big conversation. I think Ethan Ampadu's my favourite player. I love Ethan Ampadu. He's the captain of the football club. I love the fact that he was shit at Sheffield United and he's been so good with us. I'll never be able to get that game against Chelsea out of my head where he was up against a fully fledged top midfield and him and Archie Gray ran the game. So for me, if we're being honest, Ethan probably comes back in the side for Rothwell. But I don't understand why the fan base don't give Rothwell more flowers. I don't get it. And I think it's because he's not our player. Tanaka's our player. So that's the difference. But Rothwell and Tanaka are closer than you think. They're a lot closer than you think. And for people who say there's a massive difference between them both, or like Tanaka easily gets in an Ampadu, why? What has Rothwell shown? Because from a defensive perspective, yeah, Ampadu's probably your more defensive midfielder, maybe, but the balance is perfect with Rothwell and Tanaka, and they've proven it against sort of every type of team in this division. They've faced every type now. And I'm not saying they've faced every team, but they've faced every sort of type of team. The best teams, the low block teams, maybe the mid block teams. Why does Ampadu get right back in? Why, when they've been so dominant? Because I think they have in every game. I think they've been the dominant midfield pairing. I think the only bloody nose they got was probably Watford, where Watford came into the game in the second half a little bit. And I thought pack the midfield with Kiembe, Chad Vazate, and Sissoko. So they had three in the midfield. And I thought that confuses a little bit, but you can bring Brendan Aaronson into the conversation there of why didn't you just sort of like drop back into that midfield three and make it more of a three instead of a two against a three? So for me, yeah, there's a big conversation there to be had. Who would I pick? Gun to my head. I don't know. And I'm the only one saying this, by the way. I'm on a hill by myself. I'm not being influenced by everybody else. You know, we know like there's content creators of people on Twitter who will just say what everybody else says. But there is a proper conversation here why Rothwell wouldn't start. So it's an interesting one, mate. Leeds United community says Tanaka versus Rothwell offers more going forward in tight spaces. Don't give the ball away. Rothwell has to play. Ampadu, Greve, and Tanaka all play the same position. Brendan, I think you bang on, mate. I think you bang on. You bang on. And listen, I'll read out every single comment, and even if you disagree with me, Rothwell does offer something different. You are bang on. I said that on a stream before in terms of like Tanaka, the ticker over Tanaka. That's what he is. Greve is a ticker over, but he's limited, really limited in his football play. Here's one for you. So do you remember when we get like in the first games of the season, Greve's going forward more, right? And people were saying, yeah, but do you remember those couple of times where he'd play the ball over the top or he'd switch it, then he stopped for some reason? Rothwell does that twice in about 10 minutes. And people are glazing Greve for doing it over like the first 6 games a couple of times. Because literally heat maps and everything will tell you he didn't do that consistently. He didn't. You'd watch the game and he doesn't do it. So it's all about control and keeping the ball within a 5 to 7 yard radius and keep it ticking over. Yeah. And you are right. I think Tanaka is a little bit more of an advanced 6. Maybe molding into that 8. Tanaka's closer to Rothwell than Ampadu and Greve. But I'm just so thankful that Daniel Farker has been forced to show these two together. I'm so happy about that. But yeah, Farker has been looking at Grove, got injured in my opinion. Yeah, I agree with you, mate. I agree with you there. DF didn't play Rothwell or Tanaka till forced to do so by injuries. Now he's in the same to Schmidt. We just better buy Rothwell already. Brendan said, I love Rothwell's energy. Love how he drives with the ball. Grove don't get the bench. I'm not putting Ampadu ahead of these guys. Michael says, for me, Connor, it's Ampadu and Rothwell. My reason is that I think it would be the best balance, and that's not a knock on Ow. That's so interesting, Michael. I'd not thought about that because it's like, it feels like Tanaka's just like almost first name on the team sheet right now with Pask. But, mate, you look at today's game, right? And I get that there's I've got to be consistent here. There's variation between them two. Like one has to drop, one has to go. I get that. But they just kind of like, I always said this with them, they've got like an invisible rope between them where like they just know where one's going. But yeah, I just think Rothwell's variation is just great. Really, really good. And we have to play with we have to talk about Joshua as well. Joshua Gilovogi, who came in today. Do you know what? Thought he was decent, you know. I thought he was decent. Like, I'm not expecting, you know, an unbelievable footballer here. I'm not. At 34 years of age, coming into a system of which, you know, you're being asked to almost be maybe a player that you've not been at Wolfsburg. It's sometimes been the defensive midfielder with two midfielders either side of you at points. You know, it's a tough ask. It is a tough. I didn't expect to see him today. I didn't think that would happen. But Gilovogi came in, and I thought he was decent. I thought when he got on the ball, he's not as like smooth as your Rothwells and your Tanakas, but he gets the ball, and yeah, I thought he was all right. I thought he was all right. I thought he was okay. I think he's evidently right now in his career, in my opinion, probably more of a centre back, unless you get a nippy striker, because I think a nippy striker would have him on toast. But I felt in terms of breaking up the play in that midfield, his limbs sort of work for him in the sort of Yaya Toure way, where he's on you in an instant because he just literally lunges and wins the ball. But I thought their midfield, their central midfield really sort of struggled to get through him. I thought he was good. I thought he was really decent when he came on, I have to say. But yeah, evening, mate. Solomon look match fitness. Right, we have to get into him because once again, it's one of my agendas. Right, okay. So when he came on, Solomon, he had a bit of a chance, didn't he? Came on with Joseph. Didn't think Joseph was. I thought Joseph was a bit poor today. One of his poorer substitute appearances. Lovely little flick on when he first came on, but I thought he was pretty poor. There was one effort where he should have slid Firpo in, didn't do so, smacked it over the bar. Not great. Solomon, when he came on, probably one of his better substitute appearances. Why? Variation in his play. Came inside a couple of times, won about 3 free kicks, but he went down the left on a couple of appearances, on a couple of occasions, I should say, and he put the ball into the box and was unlucky on a couple of occasions. But yeah. 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 I'll tell you what, I'll leave you with this. Someone said to me in the chat, would you send him back in January so that we could maybe free up the wages a little bit, which is 60 grand a week, and maybe do something else in terms of that loan portion? I'm going to leave you with that. What would you do? Let me know in the comment section below, because we didn't give Jed Spence this much leash, did we? At all. So it's interesting. It's interesting with Solomon. Is he going to get to speed and then we're going to start seeing him lighting up the division? I don't think so. And believe it or not, everybody, this isn't any pro-political wave that I'm going on. I am just a guy talking about football. I couldn't give a shit, and that's not because it's important, because I have no sort of horses in that race. I really don't. I don't want to talk about it. I've got, this is about purely football. Hence why I come on here and talk about when he's playing football, his style, and where I don't think he's great and where I don't think it fits the system. Okay. I thought this was a little bit better today. He took on his man on the flank twice, I think. But just focus when you next see him on the explosiveness. And I think he holds back on going on that flank because he knows he can't beat them for pace anymore. And he's only 25 years of age. And he was supposed to be the best player in the championship at the start of the season. So if he knows his role, the Rock, know your role. If he knows his role and he's below Dan James, it's below Ramazani, below Willian Yonso, below Aaronson, then that's fine. But if he is maybe desiring more minutes, which I would presume as a player that we've brought in on loan for that amount of money, there is something maybe in his contract that he gets maybe a certain amount of appearances and gets, I don't know, starts for the club. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I'm still not seeing it. You guys might be. I can't believe the amount of chances this guy's getting in comparison to other players that we've had. But it is what it is. We leave this on football. But what I will say, everybody, is I'm really happy with that performance overall. An excellent performance, great performance from Dan James. Piroe, much better. Brendan Aaronson, much better. Great to see Firpo back in there as well. 10 times better from Sam Byram today. And I bet if you go on SofaScore, I bet someone tell me in the comment section, I bet SofaScore have given him a lesser rating than 8.3. Someone tell me in the comment section below, because if that's the case, I'm gonna go nuts. I'm gonna smash this gaff up. But if you're telling me last week he was better than he was this week, you're having a laugh. You're having a laugh. At what point do we need to talk about Joseph? What do you mean when you say that, mate? What do you mean when we said that? Send him back. Get Barndor to drive him. Where's Connor? Why's Bamford doing it? I think his hair's gone now, isn't it, mate? Miss Bamford today. Send him back to Tottenham. Charlie Crew and James. Yeah, they were good, mate. I thought they were decent when they came on. Thought they were decent. Yeah, I thought they did okay. But yeah, have a look at those that XG, guys. It's excellent, isn't it? Good to see. But listen, I'm gonna rant onto you too much. We're gonna have your 3 things out tomorrow as always. I want you to all join me around about 10 a.m. and we'll go through it. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. You fantastic lot. You've been beautiful in the watch on the instant match reaction. We're going to be going over to the Patreon right now to be asking these guys what they thought. We're going to be getting over to the WhatsApp group, guys. Patreon is so worth it. It's so much worth it for what other people offer. You've got to do it. WhatsApp group, 2 to 3 podcasts a week. Constant conversation. Get involved. Merchandise. Get involved. Listen, we're going to be going over there now. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And we will see you on the 3 things tomorrow. Cheers.